Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another reaction video. Today I'm going to be watching, reviewing, and reacting to episode 5, which is the finale of the HBO limited series Chernobyl. Alright, so if you watched my last video, you guys know that I had a bit of a difficult time with that one, especially after recent personal events. It definitely hit me quite hard. So it's been, I had to take a little bit of a break in between episodes 4 and 5, between how kind of upsetting to me that episode was and me having some various health issues, situations over the last few days. I just needed to take a little bit of a pause and prepare myself to continue on, and I appreciate the assurances from everyone saying that, you know, the last episode is not really going to touch on those things quite as much. So I appreciate you all, you know, your concern and your heads up about that. But I mean, this has been a really painful show to watch, knowing that these are all actual things that happened in reality to living human beings, that it's not just a fictional story. Even though it is, of course, dramatized in certain ways, that it is based on real events, real people, the things that they went through. And a lot of people have mentioned some podcasts made by the creators of this limited series that go into more detail about the specifics of what they found out in their research and the choices they made. And so I'm definitely going to look into and listen to those once I finish this, because I am very curious to hear more about everything about the actual history behind the events and about the choices that were made by the filmmakers. So I appreciate the recommendations that people gave me for those. But yeah, as I was saying, it's been difficult to watch, but it's been very compelling, a very interesting story, a very well made show so far, and I'm really definitely curious to see how they're going to wrap this whole thing up. I'm imagining that there will be more upsetting things ahead, but I want to see what we have in store for us. And I was just going back and looking back over my previous videos on this before coming to sit down and watch this final episode, and I was reminded of the very first episode. We see Jared Harris's character, who's again a real person, committing suicide, and I had thought about that a lot after watching the first episode, how that seemed kind of like a really bold choice to show that at the beginning, but it really is something that kind of leaves your mind in some respects. Like I have not been thinking about that as the story is built up and up and up, and I guess we're going to be coming to a head to find out what is ultimately going to lead him to take that drastic action. And we know that he is well aware that he's certainly going to have massive illness in his future and probably not have a very long life ahead of him, and just a life of suffering in the aftermath of spending so much time there. So I don't know if it's just that or if it's going to have to do with what they're trying to uncover, but I am definitely interested to see what the story has left to tell us. But alright, all that being said, let's get into this. Let's watch the finale. Episode 5 of Chernobyl. Here we go.
It's safe. We'll maintain at 1600. I'll go home, get some sleep, come back tonight. We'll proceed then. I'll personally supervise the test, and it will be completed.
So it isn't just negligence, and it isn't just refusal to accept that something went wrong when authority figures won't admit that to be the case. It straight up was about specific individuals who wanted to achieve something because they believed that it could lead to a promotion and benefits for them. So it wasn't just negligence, it was just straight out, you know, cutting corners in order to try and get what you want, personally.
They just removed him from his position at the Institute. Sacked for the crime of knowing. And you think that these scientists, handpicked to witness a show trial, will somehow be stirred into action by me because of some heroic stance I take in defiance of the state?
Yes,
Why?
because you're Valery Legasov and you mean something. I'd like to think that if I spoke out, it would be enough. But I know how the world works.
They will shoot me. Homyuk.
You told me to find out what happened. I spoke to dozens of people. Every word they said, I wrote down. All in these books. These are the ones who are still alive. These are the ones who are dead. They died rescuing each other, putting out fires, tending to the wounded. They didn't hesitate, they didn't waver. They simply did what had to be done.
So have I. So have I. I went willingly to an open reactor. So I've already given my life. Isn't that enough?
No, I'm sorry, but it is not.
Imagine being confronted with that. I've already given my life. That's not enough.
Absolutely.
Steliachuk? Yes. Kirschenbaum? I haven't reviewed it. We only just found out.
Oh my god.
Review it. Or you can just do what I tell you. I think even you, stupid as you are, can manage that. Well, let's go.
What a great leader.
Switch the turbine off while the reactor's still running. This is not good. Shut the fuck up and do your job. Topped and off. Reduce power to 700.
I've never done this with power so low before. It's okay, I'm with you.
It's like,
Reducing
again,
power to
it's
700.
like all of them know that this doesn't
I want
sound...
Take it down. Good. Like that.
You should have finished by now.
We're following protocol for reduction rate.
You're procrastinating. There are 10 other men in this plant would have done it already.
Oh my god.
Working and doing fine.
Kirschenbaum, come get me when these old women are ready. Yes, Comrade Dyatlov.
Is it possible for Dyatlov to be more of a dick? Is it even possible?
You are a witness, not a prosecutor. I will ask the questions here. If you weren't in the room, then where were you?
The toilet.
The toilet. Comrade Hamyuk interviewed everyone who was in the
Oh my
control room
God.
that night. They all told the same
It's like,
story.
it wasn't my fault, I was in the bathroom.
I knew what the Endloff ordered was wrong. That if I didn't do what he said, I would be fired. Leonid Toptonov. One day before he died. No, Comrade Dyatlov, you were in the room. You ordered them to raise the power.
I'm an inconsequential man, Valera. That's all I've ever been. I hoped that one day I would matter, but I didn't. I just stood next to people who did. There are other scientists like me. Any one of them could have done what I did. But you, everything we asked for, everything we needed, men, material, lunar rovers. Who else could have done these things? They heard me, but they listened to you. Of all the ministers and all the deputies, the entire congregation of obedient fools, they mistakenly sent the one good man. God's sakes, Boris. You were the one who mattered most. No one in the room that night knew the shutdown button could act as a detonator. They didn't know it because it was kept from them.
Comrade Legasov, you're contradicting your own testimony in Vienna.
The testimony in Vienna was a lie. I lied to the world. I'm not the only one who kept the secrets. There are many who were following orders from the KGB, from the Central Committee, and right now there are 16 reactors in the Soviet Union with the same fatal flaw. 3 of them are still running, less than 20 kilometers away at Chernobyl.
Mr. Legasov, if you mean to suggest the Soviet state is somehow responsible for what happened, then I must warn you, you are treading on dangerous ground.
I've already trod on dangerous ground. We're on dangerous ground right now because of our secrets and our lies. They're practically what define us. When the truth offends, we lie and lie until we can no longer remember it is even there, but it is still there. Every lie we tell incurs a debt to the truth. Sooner or later, that debt is paid. That is how an RBMK reactor core explodes.
It's not supposed to be possible.
Lies.
I mean, it looks like it has had an impact on the other scientists who are there listening. At the very least, regardless of the impact on the actual, judges, politicians. Silent. No one knows how you're supposed to react to that.
You will not meet or communicate with either one of them ever again. You will not communicate with anyone about Chernobyl ever again. You will remain so immaterial to the world around you that when you finally do die, it will be exceedingly hard to know that you ever lived at all.
If I refuse,
Refuse what?
Why worry about something that isn't going to happen?
Yeah.
why worry about something that isn't going to happen? Oh, that's perfect. They should put that on our money.
That was it. I mean, you did it. You did it. And she said. But now this is the consequences. He's not being shot in the way that he thought, but he's basically being ostracized, isolated. They're going to try and discredit him. He can never see his friends who he went through all of this with again. Alright, well, that's the end of episode 5 and the end of the miniseries or limited series, Chernobyl. I suppose, in light of what I've seen here, it makes sense, the reasons that he Legasov would have chosen to take his own life at that point in time. He knew that he was going to be dying slowly of whatever, cancer or sickness that he had as a result of the radiation poisoning. He knew that was going to happen anyway. And he may have had a couple years left, but at that point in time, what had happened to him? He'd spoken out publicly, in a way that would bring embarrassment to the Soviet Union, potentially, that called attention to the explicit telling of lies and scapegoating of Dyatlov, even though, he was responsible in different ways, but he did that. He made that sacrifice, put himself in danger, and he did that, specifically, he was willing to, go beyond, as Helmut, which I think it's interesting that she was a kind of combination character, but putting that aside, as she had kind of said to him, giving your life, that's not enough. There's more that you can do, and so you must do, because you are the one that can. And he did that. He spoke up very publicly, the cost being that he lost his position, that he lost all friendships that he had, he ended up losing the ability to push for the change that he had felt was so necessary, the change that he knew was so necessary that he was willing to put everything on the line and, accept a bullet. But they basically locked him away and made it impossible. Nobody could hear his story. He wasn't able to continue pushing for it. And so, in light of that he was going to be dying anyway, that the reason that he did all of this was being prevented from happening, it makes sense that he would take his own life under those circumstances as a catalyst for his memoirs being spread out there among the scientific community, for this information to get out there more in a more widespread manner. So it couldn't just be ignored. So that's something. I definitely feel like, okay, this episode was certainly much easier for me to get through than the previous one, but like every episode, it was hard, it was difficult to watch, but it was very well done. The acting was fantastic, the writing was fantastic. I'm very curious to listen to the podcasts and hear more about the decision-making process that went into kind of crafting this whole thing, putting it together. I'd say for me, one of the kind of best moments of this episode, and maybe the whole kind of limited edition series, was that scene between Sherbina and Legasov when Sherbina's talking about how he knows he's sick. He's probably only going to live about another year or so. And he said he had always hoped that he would do something important with his life, or he would be important in some way, and then he wasn't. And Legasov basically has to say to him, no, you were the one that mattered the most. I did what I could. There were a number of other scientists who would understand the situation the same way I did and who could potentially do what I did. But we needed somebody who was actually in a position of power and authority, who would be willing to cross lines, to challenge authority figures, to go against everything that you've been told that and taught to do your entire life, that this whole system that we live in is encouraging you to do. Someone who would be willing to go past that, to do what was right, to push us, to push to get us what we need. And by happenstance, chance, they happened to put you, the one person that would be willing to do that, into this position. And without you, then this all would have fallen apart. We probably wouldn't have succeeded in doing what we have even been able to do here. I just thought that was a really kind of powerful and compelling scene. So, very well done. Alright guys, I think I'm going to wrap it up here. It's like 3:30 in the morning. As you can probably tell, I'm extremely tired, and I think I'm starting to ramble a bit. But I'm definitely going to check out the podcasts, and if you have anything that you think that I should really try and look up and focus on, pay attention to, or anything that you feel like I've missed in kind of my discussions with these episodes that you think it would be good for me to go back and look at and then focus on when listening to the podcast and behind the scenes stuff, please do explain that or leave it down in the comment section below so I'll know your thoughts on what I should look out for. But it was an excellent series, and I appreciate you all coming along on this journey with me. It was very heartbreaking, but very well done. So, thank you so much for joining me, and hopefully I will see you next time. Bye.